Okay, hi guys, and welcome to today's show. Today we are finally going to be dueling the Tudor Heritage Black Bay Red that I recently acquired. Well, not that recently. It's been a few weeks now. I'm really enjoying the piece, and we're going to be comparing it, dueling it up against the David and Goliath, its cousin, really, the Rolex Submariner, the ceramic version, which I've had for absolutely yonks now. An outstanding piece, but is it worth that $4,000 price difference? I guess we should see. But anyway, before we get into it, I will of course do my customary wristwatch check. I'm wearing another Rolex, the GMT Pepsi, and I've put it on the Wrist Candy Watch Club Olive. Really works. That Pepsi color with the olive kind of gives it more of a military-esque vibe to it. Really enjoying it. Anyway, so wristwatch check done. Now before I get into the actual jewel, a few points I kind of wanted to go through that I neglected to mention in the main comparison. We all are fully aware of the Tudor and the Rolex's history. We really shouldn't, I shouldn't have to go into it. For those of you uninitiated with these iconic divers, the Rolex Submariner first released in 1953, and a year later with the Tudor, the first Submariner was of course the reference 6204, and the Tudor was the 7922, which I have got into this in the individual reviews. Check out the reviews if you haven't seen those. I recently reviewed the Tudor in more depth than we go through today. So check that out if you haven't. Just have a look back in the archives. So how will the faux vintage vibe of the Tudor Heritage Black Bay compare to the monochromatic allure of the classic Submariner? That is the $1,000,000 question, I guess. A few little details I neglected to mention were, of course, the Tudor with the 60-click bezel, the Submariner with the 120-click bezel. Very minor thing. The other thing is, in the lume test, I should have pointed out that the Tudor has the C3 superluminova, which glows very bright. It was difficult to tell in the lume shot, but I think it glows a little bit brighter. However, Rolex used chromalite, which is not immediately as bright, but tends to last longer. So it was reflected in the score. I just neglected to mention this tiny little point. The other thing is, I wanted to kind of reassure viewers is that this is a comparison of the ETA version, not the newer in-house. The newer in-houses have a 70-hour power reserve. They've really upgraded the movement, its performance, its accuracy, obviously. So I would have to do another duel. It would gravely affect the scores because there's such a difference between the standard ETA ETA that we have in the Heritage, in the Black Bay that is in this particular duel. So a year from now, if I get my hands on an in-house version, I'll do another duel. But it's just worthy to point out that this particular one is only between the ETA ETA and the current Submariner, so which of course is in-house. I even have to mention that? But anyway, those are just a few little kind of things I wanted to mention. Enough waffling and rambling now. Let's change perspective and get into this duel. Today we are finally doing the duel between the Rolex Submariner here on the right with the newcomer in my collection, the Tudor Heritage Black Bay Red. Now, of course, this was voted by you in a recent poll in the Facebook group. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, there will be a link in the description below. Brief explanation of the format. There are 10 categories. Each category is marked out of 10. I will explain the categories as I go along, and then the total score at 100. The final score is only comparable to other luxury timepieces. So, for example, if we compare the score here to, let's say, a jewel from the mid-range or the entry-level pieces, the scores are not compatible. They're only comparable to scores of watches in the same tier. So just to be clear. So let's start right at the beginning with value. And by the way, I'm using this London Tube map. This has just become kind of a ritual thing that I picked up in London with this beautiful clock with the tube tunnel incorporated in the design where the pendulum swings. Beautiful little bit of artwork. Just thought it's the perfect size to cover the scores. So let's have a look at the first category, and it's value. Well, the Rolex here wins, mainly because it's just such a good value proposition. It's a solid investment. It's always in demand. Yes, it is extremely expensive, slightly maybe overpriced for what it is, hence not getting a 10. Having said that, you buy one of these, your money is as good as gold. I mean, it's better than gold. It's a safe investment. So a really strong 9 there. The Tudor Black Bay, however, gets a respectable 8. There's a lot of debate, especially with the ETA versions, you know, is it worth the asking price? I think it is. I think it's a beautifully made watch for the money. Whether it'll keep its value, we have yet to see. And I have a feeling now the in-house versions are coming out. This particular one, let me just move the hands so we can see the rows. This particular version with the Tudor Rose, I think actually might just go up in value. Some of the old Tudors have gone through the roof, especially the Snowflake Submariners of old. Just incredible. I mean, they cost as much as a Rolex Submariner now. It's ridiculous. So there is a possibility that they will hold their value well. Having said that, its original price, there are quite a few on the used market, so you can actually get them for a reasonable price. I paid a really great price for this particular one, in brand new mint condition. Sorry, it's a bit dirty, but yeah. So I think a respectable 8 there for value. I also think their retail price are quite fair for what they are. I really do. Obviously it's debatable, but you know, this is my personal opinion. Okay, moving on. Design. Now, design is a little bit different from style. Style is all about aesthetics. Design is about what it's designed to do. Does it deliver in its function, in its core use as a tool watch? You know, we've got to remember these two. I mean, I know they're luxury pieces, but they are tool watches. The Rolex Submariner, in my opinion, is an almost perfect design. 10 out of 10. Everything it does impeccably well. From the clasp, the glide lock system, one of the best bracelets in my opinion ever. One of the best sports bracelets ever, the Oyster here. One of the best bezels, if not the best bezels I've ever experienced. It's just phenomenal. The screw down crown, the perfect size of the crown, legibility in those big lume, the Cyclops. For me, its design is perfect. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, flawlessly. 10 out of 10. There's no room for discussion with that with me. It really does. The Tudor, however, I think gets a respectable 8, but there are certain things about it that I think its design could have been improved. For example, the lack of crown guards. I know they're going for the retro-inspired look of the 7922 reference Tudor, but to be honest, this thing is definitely going to catch. It's already caught a few times and putting my hand in my pocket of my jeans. The positioning of the lugs leaves this huge gap here. This thick case that kind of diminishes its refinement in everything on the dial and the beautiful domed crystal and the bezel, and it's done so exquisitely well, and then it's slightly let down by this chunkiness. There are certain things that are lacking. Having said that, I do think they have taken some of the nicest design aspects, especially of the 7922 and the 7021, the best of those divers, certainly. So yeah, it's a respectable 8. Okay, moving on. Movement. In my opinion, the Rolex with its caliber 3135, which is almost close to perfection. I almost gave it a 10 out of 10. I give it a 9 because there's always a little bit of room for improvement. There are obviously even more accurate movements out there, but having said that, the Rolex Submariner, this particular caliber, with the Parachrome hairspring, and with the Paraflex shock absorber, the 50-hour power reserve, it's COSC certified. It is outstanding. Solid 9, almost a 10. But as I said, I think there's always a tiny bit room for improvement, considering, some of the new movements that are out there. The Tudor Black Bay, however, this is probably its biggest letdown. We only get a 7 here. Obviously, this particular one is the ETA 2824, reliable, and it's cheap to service. At the end of the day, the biggest argument with this watch is paying all this money for an ETA, for an ETA. A lot of people have serious issue with that, and it's a shame because I think it is worth it. But this is my personal opinion. Yes, I think the in-house is a hell of a lot better. Unfortunately, you know, I'm a sucker for aesthetics, and I love the details and, you know, the little rows of this particular ETA version. So for me, an ETA is absolutely fine. Other people just, you know, really get upset paying this much for an ETA movement, and I understand that. I do understand that. If we look at Tudor's history, they've always used the ETA. They've always used the ETAs. You know, it's nothing new. It's just a shame that they didn't start off from the get-go with the in-house. I know they've gone to in-house now, and that's very impressive. At the end of the day, it's just a standard 2824. It's not even chronometer. It's not the highest grade version in the least. It's a little bit of a disappointment, I must admit. So the movement only gets 7. Okay, moving on. Prestige and heritage. Well, there's no doubt that the Submariner gets a 10 out of 10. It's, you know, one of the most iconic watches ever made. I mean, out of the top 3 icons, you know, number 1 is the Speedmaster, number 2 is probably the Submariner, number 3 is the Breitling Navitimer. Even though the Navitimer predates them all, we did a recent poll in the Facebook group, and I really thought the Submariner would come out tops, but just, you know, the Speedy nipped ahead. So it is one of the truest icons. There's no discussion in this category. I mean, it's heritage. It's such an influential watch. It's probably the most faked and homaged timepiece ever. So that only goes to show its prestige and heritage, that so many people buy into it, so to speak, or kind of latch onto it somehow. It's such an inspirational, influential design. It just, you know, what more can I say? As for the Tudor, I think the Tudor really gets a strong 9. I think the history of Tudor divers is, I mean, it mirrors, to a certain extent, it's in the shadow, obviously, of Rolex, but they've got some amazing references from really all the way back to the early days, as old as the Submariner, and some beautiful, tasteful pieces as well. I think their lineage and heritage is greatly overlooked, and I think I would have given them an 8, but I think they deserve a 9 simply because the effort Tudor have gone to recently. They've really bounced back. They've exploded onto the American market. The new Tudors they're offering has really up to the whole brand. They're so strong now. They're nipping at Omega's heels. They're probably, you know, some consider them almost as good as Omega now, because just the sheer amount of solid watches they offer after being a little bit boring and kind of overlooked. I adore Tudor. I think they're going from strength to strength, really tasteful, future classics. You know, we have the North Flag, we have the Ranger, we have the Black Shield, which is just, you know, very sexy. Obviously, we have the Tudor Heritage Black Bay line, which now you have the 36mm, you have the bronze. It's a great brand that are really coming into their own, and that's why I give them a solid 9. So I just love what Tudor are doing, and they deserve it. They really do. Okay, moving on. Quality. Again, the same scores here, and there's no doubt that the quality in a Rolex is just unbeatable. Their quality control is second to none. A watch that isn't perfect never leaves their factory. They have the most stringent testing and quality control you will ever see in large-scale watch manufacturing. It's just phenomenal. I mean, I did several videos talking about, you know, 10 things everybody should know about Rolexes, and the attention to detail, the care, the amount of checks and testing that goes on. You buy a brand new Rolex, you know exactly what you're getting. Everybody I know that's ever worked in the watch industry, they never see Rolexes coming back unless, you know, you drop them from out the window or something. These are mechanical things. They do go wrong, but truthfully, They're some of the best made, mass produced items ever created, and their quality control is second to none. 10 out of 10. The Tudor, I think, gets a really solid 9. Oh, and I neglect to mention, I'm including the finishing, the quality. I mean, do I even have to bring that up? It's undoubtedly, they are perfect. When you buy one of these new, they are perfect. Okay, so the Tudor, I think the Tudor gets a solid 9. The quality is beautiful. Obviously, you're not getting the highest standard of materials and components like the movement and all the rest of it. But I must say, the box, all the straps, the bezel, everything is pretty much spot on. I can't find any faults with it whatsoever. And this was a used piece too, so really is outstanding. So, moving on. Style. Now again, the same scores as before. Stylistically, aesthetically, I think the Submariner, being so influential, so copied, so faked often, so many homages to this particular design, stylistically it can only get 10 out of 10. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Well, why is that? Because stylistically they just got it right. Yes, I know this version is a bit bulkier, then you go pre-ceramic, but at the end of the day, Rolex do things very carefully. You know, they were trying to compete in a watch market that had gone oversized. Instead of changing the diameter, they just made it a little bit more chunky, a little bit more contemporary. And that adds to its everlasting classic appeal. They haven't gone, 42 or 44, ridiculous. It's just a tiny bit chunkier. And trust me, I actually really love the extra little bit of chunk. It feels, compared to my Rolex GMT, which is pre-ceramic, obviously, the Pepsi, it does have a heft to it. It makes sense, so to speak, its design, its style, sorry. The way that the ceramic catches the light, all the attention to detail, the recut there, the applied lume markers, it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Stylistically, I think the Tudor is a cool, sexy looking piece. That chocolate dial, that chocolatey textured dial, those snowflake hands, it's got a style of its own, and that really does, give it a strong 9. And we're talking about the Submariner here. This is no easy task going up against its cousin, really. The variations in the bezel colors, the applied, the beautiful gilded hands, the Tudor rose, the Tudor Union rose, I should say, because it's both roses combined. The little details on the clasp, the shield there. Stylistically, they know what they're doing. That dome sapphire, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I think it could have been 10 out of 10 had they made the case a little bit less tall here and a little bit more refined. Having said that, the beautiful beveled edges are stunning to behold. So yeah, very close to perfect there, but not quite. Moving on, versatility. Now this is the first category that the Tudor wins. Don't get me wrong, the Rolex Submariner here is extremely versatile. It looks just as good in a suit as it does casual. A lot of people wear these as dress watches now, and I can understand the appeal. It's a very versatile piece. The black classic design looks great on rubber, looks great on a NATO, looks great on the leather even. It's a true classic design, very versatile. However, I have to give the edge to the Tudor. There's just something about its retro vintage appeal that makes it work on more NATOs and more straps, especially the straps. I mean, this vintage styled theme that's got going makes it far more versatile to match straps with. It really does. It's almost more fun. And I give it 10 out of 10. I've had nothing but fun with this watch, dressing it in all different kind of straps. It just goes, and I think it's more versatile than the Submariner. I really do. I know, a bit quite surprising, but it had to win at something. So far, it's been trailing behind, not that much, but I think it is a more versatile piece. I think actually it's more fun to dress up. I think because of that vintage look, the Submariner is very contemporary, but because of its classic appeal of the Black Bay here, it's a little bit more fun and certainly more versatile. Okay, moving on, performance. We've got to go in a lot of detail here because there's a lot of things at play here. First of all, let's have a look at the loom shot. And it really is difficult to tell which is best. I mean, I think actually probably in terms of legibility the Tudor's better because of that snowflake hands. Personally, out of preference, I do prefer the Submariner. I just love that cool blue. It's just gorgeous. It's just because I love blue, really. But having said that, Tudor's gorgeous as well. They really are equal. It's equal. But then again, it may be different through the viewfinder. Let me know what you prefer in the comments. Anyway, both very equally sprayed, extremely well done, really nice, generous application, very legible, perfect for dive watches. I mean, what do you expect? They meet the task. Both of them, they do an outstanding job. Aesthetically, I think the no-date layout of the Tudors may be a little bit better, but I still prefer the blue of the Submariner. Anyway, let's take it back to the studio. Okay, welcome back, guys. So, performance. What have we got? Well, there's no doubt that the Tudor gets a respectable 8. It's not COSC certified, it's an ETA, it's only got 38-hour power reserve, 200 meters water resistance. That's more than enough for most people, it really is. But we got to be honest, Submariner here, we got 300 meters water resistance, we've got a COSC certified movement performing with 50 hours power reserve, we got that Parachrome hairspring, we got the Paraflex shock absorber, we got the ceramic, bezel here that doesn't scratch as easily as the aluminium. 10 out of 10 performance wise, you can't beat the performance, reliability, robustness, it can't be beaten in this category. Having said that, the Tudor performs admirably for what it is. I mean, God, you'd hope so, The other thing is, there has been some criticism about the anodized aluminium crown tube here. There was a little bit of issue about it. So far it's been absolutely fine with me, but it's worthy to point out. Stylistically as well, I forgot to mention, I do love that way it matches the red with the bezel. It's a really nice subtle touch. Also, we have the best clasp, the best bracelet ever. Actually, the bracelet, I must admit, bracelet on the Tudor is pretty good. It really is, but we just haven't got that glide lock. We got the old school, nowhere near as sophisticated or well made. Having said that, it is of an exceptional quality, but performance wise there's just no comparison. Okay, moving on. Durability. Again, there's no doubt that the durability of the Submariner is superior here. We get a 9 out of 10. We've got the superior Rolex steel here, of course. We've got all the modern contemporary technology in the movement. It would get a 10 out of 10. The only thing I find that the larger lugs do catch more. They have a tendency to catch more. It's a very minor thing. I could almost put 10 out of 10, but I don't think so, because I am aware there are divers, we only have to look at Seiko, that can go decades without a service. The Tudor, I gotta admit, it can take a knock, it can take a bashing. It's, we've got all the sapphire there. We'll get a solid 8. Obviously we haven't got the ceramic, and the cases juts out quite a bit. If you've got a skinnier wrist, you might catch here. The durability is respectable. I wouldn't hesitate for a second taking this into the water. Obviously it doesn't have the more stronger steel of the Submariner. It just has a standard steel, but we do get the oyster case technology that from Rolex, so a solid 8 definitely. Okay, moving on. The last thing, and the X factor. Well, there's no doubt that the Submariner gets a 10 out of 10. You're getting all that heritage and prestige, the connotations with cinema, James Bond. There's an X factor. There's an enduring demand for this piece. It's it's just very, very iconic, and there's no doubt that its X factor is 100%, 10 out of 10. You really can't compete with it. It's got that special something in the bucket loads. It's often imitated, often copied, and probably the most faked watch in the world. So that just gives you an idea of how special that X factor is. What it is exactly, I can't quite tell you. It's an amalgamation of so many things. It's rich history. It's iconic status. It's a cultural icon. It's where do I begin to explain? Having said that, the Tudor comes very close with the 9. There's something very cool going on here, and I think it's because of this vintage appeal. It has a magic to it that in some ways the Submariner doesn't. It is more divisive in its taste. Some people just don't like the vintage aesthetic, and some people really do love it. If we look at the blue version that doesn't have the gold gilded hands and is a little bit more contemporary without the cream lume, it's a little bit more modern. It's more like a 7021. Whereas this is obviously, I think, more like the 7922. But anyway, the point is that they have captured the X factor in it. It does have that special something, and I think it gets a well-deserved 9. It's fun, it's desirable, it's cool, it's bringing the whole Submariner legacy and heritage to a new generation, accessible to a new lineage, to a whole new generation, and I think that's really, really cool. I think they're both cracking pieces. There's no doubt that who the winner is. We might as well do this total right now. And of course, 95 for the Submariner, and a really strong 85 for the Tudor. I think it's a respectable score. Obviously, it's never going to be better than the ceramic sub. It just, technologically, it's a far more expensive watch and a far higher quality. But having said that, it only lags 10 points behind, so it can't really be that bad. I think anybody that gets a Tudor Black Bay in-house ETA, regardless, I think it's a great cracking watch, a really solid luxury watch. And interestingly enough, when we compared or dueled the Submariner to the Omega Seamaster, the ceramic, the ceramic Seamaster got 86, so almost neck and neck with the Tudor Black Bay here. Which would I choose? Well, I think the answer lies before you. I personally would go with the Black Bay. Doesn't have that coaxial movement in ceramic, but certainly has more stylistic appeal and a little bit more kind of pizzazz about it. That's the final scores. Let me know what you think down below. Which would you choose? And what jewel would you like to see next? Please nominate your suggestions in the comments. Anyway, guys, let's take it back to the studio. Okay, welcome back, guys. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please don't forget to add your opinions, thoughts, queries, questions, all the rest of it down below in the comments. I really do love hearing back from you guys. One last thing to kind of think about before we go is that question: is it worth that extra $4 grand? Personally, I think it is. It's a substantial difference in quality, but the interesting thing to notice is the scores. There's only about 10 points difference. So even though you do get a lot of that luxury experience with the Tudor, technically, yes, it hasn't got the clasp and the bracelet and this, that and the other. The performance obviously is never going to be as good or superior to the Submariner. It was quite interesting, its versatility. I think that was an interesting thing to note. Okay guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, found it useful. It really does help me, so please don't forget to hit that like button. And as always guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.